me just introduce myself. I'm Pedro. I'm a writer for CCN and CoinRevet. I'm also doing a research project with the University of Huddersfield on the blockchain, like the supply chain at the moment.
Fantastic.
Okay, and I'm also the founder of Beyond. It's a platform for recruitment and talent management. Our goal is to we're incorporating tokens for governance, so that users can basically, decide on the usability of the platform. They can make decisions on new developments and so on. Okay, but that doesn't really mind for the interview.
And you're a Star Wars fan.
Yes, I am a Star Wars fan indeed. Yeah. Oh, because of the
I saw the stormtrooper mask. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's pretty nice. My girlfriend offered me for birthday when I was 28, I think. Yeah, it's a pretty nice one.
Very nice.
You like Star Wars as well, I can see. That's nice. Pretty
Sure.
fun. Yeah, who doesn't? For our readers and for the viewers, basically at home, who just joined crypto probably, I don't know, within the last few hours and who don't know who you are, just to make a brief introduction about yourself and your experience within the blockchain, Roger. Thank you.
Sure. So my name is Roger Veer. I was the first person in the entire world to start investing in this ecosystem. I've been involved over 8 years full-time now, since February of 2011. And some of the companies that people have heard of, I'm sure, that I've basically put up the seed money to start, are companies like blockchain.com, kraken.com, bitpay.com, and today I'm the CEO of Bitcoin. Did I say Bitcoin.com before? Bitpay.com is one of the other ones. And there's lots of them out there. There's a whole list. So, and today I'm the CEO of Bitcoin.com. Exactly. And almost all of them, they have bit or coin in the name somehow. So.
Well, can I ask you a question? I mean, I wasn't. Well, it wasn't on the interview questions. I mean, we can cut this out if you want. It's completely okay. But this is just out of curiosity. When are you guys changing the the website? I mean, if you guys are changing the website name ever, is it okay if I ask? If not, it's okay. We can take this one out.
You could ask, but I'm going to keep you in suspense in regards to that.
It's absolutely fine.
We have an excellent design team, but excellent designs take time.
Okay. No, you know what? Honestly, this is what's just out of curiosity. So, okay. Thank you for your introduction, Roger. I think people, got an idea of who you are and your importance, in the field, obviously. I would like to ask, is if you could describe your current level of knowledge, expertise, and experience in blockchain technology. Sorry.
I think if I had to say where my expertise is, it lies in the economic understanding of why Bitcoin came to be used as money at all. Because especially in the early days, nobody thought that it was going to be used as money and nobody thought it was going to take on. But thanks to my own educational background, I knew that people were going to start using it as money. There was no doubt in my mind whatsoever that people were going to start using it as money. So my job as an investor was to first buy some Bitcoin, and the second was to invest in all the businesses to make the tools to make it easier for people to use it as money. And that's why today, as both an investor and an entrepreneur, I'm focused on Bitcoin Cash, because I think that has the best shot at becoming money for the world, and I'm most interested in replacing the government monopoly on the issuance of money.
Okay. I mean, I know that you see yourself as as a libertarian, and I would like to understand your view about the broader cryptocurrency spectrum. How do you see the field evolving? And especially because you joined so in such in the early days, how do you see the field evolving in the future, and how it has evolved during these past 10 years?
Sure. So when I first got involved, there basically wasn't anybody that was involved who wasn't a libertarian or a voluntarist or a free market proponent. Whereas now maybe we're starting to become the minority, and we see lots of people, literally taking out billboards advertising about how they, love the government and love government regulation and want to obey every last little detail that the politicians demand. And so that's definitely a big change from the early days of Bitcoin. But that's a sign of the fact that the ecosystem itself is growing and becoming bigger than it was before. So that's a good thing. And then I love it. I absolutely love it. I get emails fairly often from people saying that they were not a libertarian at all. And they didn't understand free markets, and they didn't understand the importance of free trade until they found Bitcoin. And then they became exposed to some of these ideas. And then they wound up becoming a free market advocate or a voluntarist or a libertarian because of their exposure to Bitcoin. Whereas I was attracted to Bitcoin because I was already a free market advocate or a libertarian.
Okay, and how did your views about these crypto world change during these past 10 years? Do you think that, of course, as you were saying, people that who are a little bit different in terms of their worldviews are joining now, as you said, not only crypto libertarians or libertarians. So how, do you think that makes a good impact in the field?
Yeah, I think the more ideas that people are exposed to, the better, and the true ideas can win out and supplant the bad ideas. And so the
Right.
idea that one small group of people should have a monopoly on the issuance of money and be able to toss anybody else in jail that competes with them in their monopoly, that idea needs to come to an end, and it's starting to come to an end thanks to the invention of cryptocurrencies.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with that, and I think that's our ultimate battle, as crypto enthusiasts. So I think everybody agrees on that point. Comparing Bitcoin with Bitcoin Cash, I mean, let's just say, what are your key intakes, the key advantages of Bitcoin Cash?
So Bitcoin Cash works the same way that Bitcoin did for the
Mm-hmm.
first 7 or 8 years of its existence. And the best example of it right now is that over this video call, if I wanted to send you some Bitcoin Cash, I can do it from my phone to your phone in a trustless manner, and it'll cost about a 30th of a penny to do that.
That is
If I
true.
wanted to do that on the BTC network, maybe it would cost 10, 20, 30, 50 cents today. I haven't checked what the fees are today, and you don't know because it changes from day to day or even hour to hour. And if we wanted to do that with this Lightning Network thing that everybody keeps talking about, if we do it with Bitcoin Cash, if you've never, ever, ever used cryptocurrency before in your entire
Mm-hmm.
life, in a trustless way, I can send you Bitcoin Cash on chain from my phone to your phone in like 30 seconds, right? You can have the app downloaded and be using it in a trustless way. If we want to do that with Lightning Network, it'll take hours because you'd have to spin up your whole own node, and it would, be this giant, undertaking that would take the rest of the afternoon. That's not the way you onboard the entire planet into using cryptocurrency. Whereas being able to onboard them in 30 seconds in a permissionless way, like you can with Bitcoin Cash, I think that's a really good way to onboard the entire planet. So at the end of the day, I don't care if it's Bitcoin Cash or Dash or BTC or Ethereum. I like anything that works, and if it works and works well, I'm going to use it. And right now, I think Bitcoin Cash is the most useful cryptocurrency as money around the world, and we're seeing more and more people start to use it around the world. And we have a fantastic team at Bitcoin.com that's really building lots of useful tools to make Bitcoin Cash even more useful for people around the world.
And I think that's those are amazing goals, to be honest. One of the other things I'm going to talk to you about are the things that you're adding to Bitcoin Cash, which honestly I think they're very, very good, especially the smart contracts bits. And
Mm-hmm.
there's two different developments on that front. So, and we'll talk about them in a bit. But since we're on the topic, I would like, I mean, obviously from your opinion, I think that you value more the speed at which we can transact, other than the fact that we can store value for longer or not. How do you see that those two not issues, but how those 2 points balancing out? Which one do you
So
think is more
the
important?
store of value and payments,
Yeah,
is that
exactly.
the
Yeah,
two?
exactly. Yeah.
So I think it's the ability to be used for payments that makes it a store of value.
Okay.
Nothing can be a store of value if it doesn't have an additional use case.
Okay.
So the reason everybody uses the dollar as a store of value is
Mm-hmm.
because you can spend them anywhere. But if, let's say,
It's
we
true.
snapped our finger and tomorrow you can't spend dollars anywhere, nobody
Yeah.
would use it as a store of value. And so it was the same with Bitcoin. People started to use it as a store of value because you were able to spend it at lots and lots of places. And now its spendability is being undermined. So that means it's going to undermine its ability to be used as a store of value. Whereas Bitcoin Cash is it being able to be spent at more and more places around the world, which will make it more and more of an attractive store of value as time goes by as well. So I don't think that those two things are separate things. I think they're two sides of the same coin.
Okay.
Spendability and use in payments is what enables it to be used as a store of value. And if you destroy the spendability, you destroy its usefulness as a store of value.
Okay. I think I agree with you on that front. I'm not sure how people, eventually, give value to something. Honestly, I haven't found out the answer to that. I mean, whoever finds the answer, I mean, they can invent the next big thing, I guess. But
I can tell you the answer to that because I studied it very, very
okay,
deeply. And so the answer to that is something has to have a use case,
okay,
right? So in the early days, bits of metal were used as money, but because you could make those metal into other things. And so the most common example of that is gold. And people say, oh, gold, what are you going to do with it? But like gold has been used as tooth fillings for thousands and thousands of years, probably more than 6,000 years. For the very, very beginning of recorded history, it was used for that sort of thing. And in modern day, it's there's a bunch of gold in my iPhone.
no, no, it's absolutely
Gold
true.
is
It's very useful. Yeah,
used
as a
a lot
metal. Yeah,
in the
it's
industry.
absolutely true. Yeah.
Yeah. And the way gold became kind of this worldwide store of value is because of its usefulness as other things, people started using it as money as well. And the fact that gold used to be used as money all over the world, as a side effect of that, it's still used as a store of value to this very day. So other things that wind up being used as money are things like tobacco, right?
It's
With
true.
tobacco,
Yeah,
it's
sure.
easy to recognize, it's easy to
Mm-hmm.
transport, it's easy to store.
It's
You can't
durable as
counterfeit it.
well. Yeah, yeah.
But most importantly, it has an actual use case. People like
Okay.
to smoke it,
Smoke it. Yeah,
right?
it's true.
So with Bitcoin, it was really neat. So people started using it as a store of value. But the reason they did that is because it had this really amazing use case. You could instantly teleport it anywhere in the world, basically for free. And that instant portability of Bitcoin anywhere in the world, basically for free, has been attacked and undermined. Whereas on Bitcoin Cash, it's been embraced. And so that's why I'm such a big fan of Bitcoin Cash today. And I hear the exact same insults towards Bitcoin Cash that I heard from about Bitcoin back in 2011. So I didn't listen then, and I'm not listening now, because the
Okay.
people that attack and insult, Bitcoin back in 2011, they're wrong. They were wrong then, and they're wrong about Bitcoin Cash today.
I mean, I think people gotta love your passion, man. Honestly, you're just so passionate about like not only Bitcoin Cash, but about like the cryptocurrency field in general. I know that obviously you gotta do your thing. You gotta promote Bitcoin Cash, and honestly,
I
it's
don't, but
no, no,
I
no,
want
no,
to.
not
If
in
I
a.
can do a timeout
Okay,
there,
okay, sorry, no,
I'm not.
no, I didn't mean it in a bad way.
Yeah.
Like
I
because
know you didn't mean it in a bad way,
no, no,
but I'm not promoting Bitcoin
okay,
Cash
okay.
because it's Bitcoin Cash. I'm
No, no, no,
promoting it because it's
exactly.
useful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You're promoting Bitcoin Cash like, as a great way to exchange value, not because it's Bitcoin Cash. If it could be any other, like, any other coin that, you would see like, as a valuable asset to transfer, money. And I completely agree with you on that front. I've used Bitcoin Cash and it's true. It's super quick. Okay. I have absolutely no complaints about like, the quickness of like the transfer. I tried it at Web Summit. Okay, you guys had the Bitcoin.com representation there, and I did try it. It was amazing, an amazing experience. It was super fast, so I can completely vouch you on that front. Yeah, so I wasn't saying like promoting in that front. I was promoting like as a good way to exchange value. Basically, that was my point. Besides Bitcoin Cash. I mean, what other? I mean, I know you mentioned like the projects that you're invested in. Any other projects that you'd like or you'd like to to discuss or tell people about?
And of course, Ethereum is awesome because they
Okay.
have this whole ICO thing, and now IEOs and STOs and all these tokens are absolutely amazing, right? And if you think about it, like it's doing to venture capital what cryptocurrency did to payments, right? So now,
Sure.
because of tokens, any investor can invest in any entrepreneur anywhere in the world instantly, and like all the hurdles and barriers to entry have just been destroyed basically, which
Absolutely
is
true.
fantastic for the entire innovation and progress of the world. This is great. And unfortunately, certain government agencies are pulling their hair out saying, oh my God, people are using their money how they want to invest in businesses that they want. They can't be allowed to do this without our permission. But like, no, people should be allowed to do it without
Exactly.
needing permission from other people. That's the whole point of this whole ecosystem.
I mean, like since we like talked like about Ethereum, then I'm gonna, as I said, I'm gonna talk about the smart contracts on Bitcoin Cash. But how is your view between like STOs, traditional ICOs, and DICOs, or decentralized autonomous ICOs, where that are basically milestone based, for example? How do you think that all those three play together? Which one will in the future will become like the greatest one, or the way that people will use to fund projects?
I think the biggest advantage of like these decentralized
Mm-hmm.
autonomous things are that it makes it harder for regulators to attack.
Okay.
And like if the regulators weren't busy trying to attack all sorts of entrepreneurs and all sorts of businesses, then there wouldn't be anywhere near as much of a need for these decentralized things. So my hope is that maybe a decade in the future, when this is all really really widespread, the regulators will the governmental regulators will have to go and find jobs in the private sector, honest work, and maybe they can do an ICO ratings website just like we have the Better Business Bureau or Consumer Reports. They like do private sector reviews of different products rather than having a bunch of men with guns and wearing suits
Just
working
forcing,
buildings
yeah.
with flags out front threatening people. So like
Yeah,
I
of
think
course.
the age of threatening people with violence for engaging in mutually consensual acts, those days need to come to an end. And I see cryptocurrencies as a tool to help
It's
usher
a gateway, yeah,
an
of
end to
course.
that sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay, nice. And I completely agree with you. I think cryptocurrencies are indeed like a gateway so that people can have their their own freedom, like true freedom, because they like money is freedom at the end, right? If you have money, you can do stuff, you can do things, you can improve your life. So yeah, on that front, I completely agree with you. How do you view the potential of smart contracts in Bitcoin Cash? Because I know that there are at least that I know of two different implementations. You have Speeden, right, and then you have your own oracles for that you guys are building. At least I saw on Bitcoin.com that you guys are building for Bitcoin Cash. If you want to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, there's just so much going on, and we're trying to build it all out. But one of the ones that I'm the most excited about is we're the site to promote it a little bit and collect emails is up, and the actual live site should be up within a month at local.bitcoin.com.
Okay.
And we've made a tool where anybody anywhere in the world can buy and sell and trade Bitcoin Cash for any other product, anything, whether it's other fiat monies or chickens or absolutely anything
Of
they
course,
want.
anything, yeah.
But and there's not really a good English terminology for the way it works. So I think the term that we're using on the website right now is a self-controlled escrow or something like
Okay.
that. So basically, the two parties to the contract both hold the escrow funds.
Okay.
Bitcoin.com never has access to those funds.
Okay.
All we can do without ever having access to any of the keys, without ever signing a transaction, all using a smart contract, if there's a dispute, we can tip it so that one party can do things without the other party's permission and release the funds to whichever party deserves it if we do. But it won't just be Bitcoin.com that can be the arbiter. We can set it up so that when the smart contract is created,
Okay.
they can specify who gets to be the arbiter if there's a problem as well. So we can have competing arbitration companies
That's
to
amazing.
do the dispute resolution for this platform. So it'll work for anything, whether you want to sell, buy or sell a car or a Star Wars mask collectible or trade your yen for Bitcoin Cash. Like it'll work for anything. And this is something that's possible thanks to the new, DSV, Data Sig Verify opcode that's available on Bitcoin Cash now. And so this is going to be really, really exciting. And for the people that watch this that are excited about it too, go on over to local.bitcoin.com and you can put in your email address and we'll notify you as soon as the website launches.
Okay, guys, so local.bitcoin.com. Remember that. Thank you. So, I mean, like, at least for me, that's one of, one of the most important future functionalities, like giving the ability, the ability for people to trade, and that, like, for people who are not in the same geographical location, obviously. And, and obviously an escrow like that, I'm going to call it escrow for the time being, when you guys have, like, a different name, something like super awesome, we're going to use that one, obviously. But,
yeah, we need to think up a better name for it because escrow really doesn't do justice to how cool it is.
I mean, yeah, not even trading escrow. I mean, yeah, I'm sure you guys gonna find like an awesome name for it. But like that
I hope so.
I mean, that functionality, I think it's pretty awesome, and it can enable, as you said, like like a bunch of like new things being done on the network, like with completely different validators. A question: how do you feel about like for example, having validators that like are government entities? Do you think that will happen?
I think that all human interaction should be on a voluntary basis or not at all. So if people voluntarily want to use a government and that government is funded voluntarily, I don't think it would be a government, but if people still want to call it a government, then it would be just fine for people to use it.
Okay, and before we talk about a little bit more about governance, just another question about smart contracts. What about the other implementation, Speden? Because am I saying the name right? Speden, I think it is Speden. Okay, but basically, I mean, what they're also trying to implement smart contract functionality, like as you said, like the ability to maybe like have validators that can roll back a transaction if there's a dispute. How is that implementation going? Is it also going well? Do you think like do you guys have news about that?
Yeah, so that's probably actually a better question for that team. There's just so many different teams working on so much awesome stuff. So there's a lot going, and it's kind of really fun to see as someone who's been around the space so long. So many of the early pioneers in Bitcoin space are great big giant fans of Bitcoin Cash right now because they see it as the version of Bitcoin that they fell in love with to begin with. And a prime example of that, of course, is Gavin Andreessen, the person that Satoshi Nakamoto handed the project over to when he left. He's a great big giant Bitcoin Cash fan today.
That's true. It's true. I mean, as I said, you guys have loads of support, and and I think it's very good for the market that you don't have like only one Bitcoin implementation. I know loads of people are against like this idea, but I think it's like if you have a free market, you're never only gonna have one implementation of whatever network. I mean, that's just
like web browsers, right?
Exactly.
You have Chrome,
like
Firefox, Safari, Opera. There's a bunch.
100%, and it's very good that we have a choice as consumers. I mean, if there's a problem with one network, I can switch to another one. It's amazing, and that's why I think it's important that people support different implementations and different ways of doing the same thing, basically.
Yeah,
And
and you don't have to be married to one cryptocurrency, just like you
exactly,
don't have to be
exactly,
married to one browser. I think I have
absolutely,
4 different browsers installed on my computer, and at
exactly.
least 4 different cryptocurrencies on my computer as well.
And I think that's the way to like to go. Not having one, having many for different purposes. I completely
Yeah.
completely agree with you. One last
Let's get
question.
rid of these one size fits all solutions, which is, if you think
Exactly,
about it, that's what government is. It's a one size fits
exactly.
all
I mean,
solution
that's what we're really fighting against, right? One solution that fits everything, right? I mean, and that's not
because
going
it
to work
won't
out.
fit.
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't work out. We've tried that, been there, done that. Doesn't work. Let's move to something else. I completely agree with you on that front. How do you view, and this is about governance, how do you view direct democracy and the ability that people can one day maybe vote with tokens, or that tokens or cryptocurrencies can enable direct voting? Do you think that's even a possibility?
It's certainly a possibility. I guess I'm a fan of like the natural rights theory. I think you have natural rights that are inherent in you being you,
Exactly.
and I don't think other people should get to vote on what my rights are. And so, for people that aren't aware of it, like, go and spend some time and read on the difference between negative rights and positive rights. And a lot of people, just without having read about it or thought about it, they just think, oh, healthcare is a right, cable TV is a right, whatever's
Hmm.
right. No, a right is something that you have without anybody else having to give it to you.
Like air,
And so that,
for example.
like
Yeah.
like air, I guess, is a good
Yeah.
example, right? Or to move my mouth the way I
Yeah.
am right here today.
Like
So
free speech. Exactly. I get it.
yeah, but free speech only on your own property, not on somebody else's property. So, like,
Exactly.
going and yelling
Yep.
fire in a movie theater, it's not a violation of free speech. It's a violation of the movie theater owner's property rights in that
Okay.
theater, because he's allowing you to come in there to view a movie, not to scream about fires being in this movie theater.
No, exactly. I mean, if I think at the end everything is connected, about ownership and property. I mean, and of course, free speech as well. You can't, I mean, you can say whatever you want, but
With your
not
own
wherever
property,
you
not
want.
someone else's. Yeah.
Exactly. Obviously. I mean, Roger, thank you so much for this for this interview. I hope the people at home have enjoyed it. I've personally enjoyed a lot talking to you, and it was my first time meeting you or e-meeting you basically. But honestly, it was a pleasure, and I hope I can talk to you again soon. And
I would
much
love
luck
to, and
for
I feel
yeah.
your passion and excitement too. Thank you for that.
I am super passionate about cryptocurrency and any project any project doing something. I just want to talk to
Anything that
them.
works.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Anything that works, I want to talk to them. I want to know how it works. I want to understand everything. So obviously, Bitcoin Cash, it's a huge project, and I mean I want to get to know you even better in the future. Obviously, thank you so much for the for this talk, and yeah, see you soon, man.
Thank you, Pedro.
Bye. So do you reckon it's a potential, or is it hyper fed? I mean, we've talked about this a bit, so if you want, I'm not sure if you want to ignore this one.
I think it's kind of a mistake to view each like piece of the economy as its own separate thing. Like the entire world is one great big giant economy.
Okay.
And so, like, let's say like blockchain payment technologies make banking so much more efficient that, like, banks lay off thousands or tens or even hundreds of thousands of people that used to work in banks doing reconciliations or whatever, or bank tellers, or who knows what, right? So
Hmm.
all those people that then got laid off from working at the bank, well, now they're going to go and find different jobs, and some of them will find jobs in construction and buildings and that sort of thing. So, like, even if they're not using tokens directly for the tracking the resources that are going into the supply chain for doing the construction,
Okay.
suddenly the entire construction market has more labor available to it. So, like, everything's connected to everything else. And there's a fantastic essay I would love to recommend people read. It's called I Pencil, by a man named Leonard Reed. Or you watch, there's a YouTube video about it as well. And, like, basically the video starts out with the claim that, like, there's not a single human being alive that knows how to make a pencil. And you hear that and you think, what do you mean? Like, a pencil's so easy, anybody knows how to make a pencil.
So
Like,
yeah.
yeah, but he goes into the detail of it, right? So, like, even like the yellow paint on the pencil, right? Like, where does the yellow paint come from? Where does the pigment for the paint come from? How do they make the paint itself? And then you need all the machinery to make the paint. Or then there's like the rubber eraser at the tip of the pencil, right? Like you need rubber trees in Indonesia, and then you grow them, and then you chop them down or harvest the rubber out of the rubber trees using chainsaws. And the chainsaws are made in the factory somewhere else, and the chainsaws need gasoline. It's dug out of the ground in like, Saudi Arabia, and then shipped on tankers across the world to refineries. And it goes into all the detail. And by the end of all the detail, you realize, my God, there's not a single person in the world that does know how to make a pencil. And if there's nobody that knows how to even make a pencil, imagine the laptop that I'm sitting here talking to you on and all this other stuff. So like, if Bitcoin or cryptocurrencies make just one little tiny corner of the economy more effective, it influences everything else in the entire rest of the world as well. So it's a really amazing example of just like spontaneous order coming together to make the world a better place for everybody. So people like to talk about like how capitalism is competition and everybody's competing with everybody else, but like they're competing to cooperate even better. So it's a competition to cooperate. And the more people are able to cooperate, the better they're doing in the competition. So it's a really, really fantastic thing that I think more people should be aware of. So I really love the essay iPencil or the YouTube video if you like YouTube videos more than for something to work well as a currency. It has to have a limited supply. It has to be easy to transport. It has to be easily recognizable. It has to be hard to counterfeit. It has to have all these characteristics. And if you have something that only has one of those characteristics but doesn't have the other ones, then it doesn't work that well. You have to have all of those things. And when Bitcoin was invented to begin with, it was the one that had all those characteristics better than any other form of money ever. Today, I don't think that's the case because there's thousands of different cryptocurrencies. I'm sure there's plenty that have better characteristics as money, even better than Bitcoin Cash. But the network effect is incredibly important as well. And so you have to take that. And so like, think about like, why is everyone still using the dollar or the euro today instead of like, a cryptocurrency? Because they have bigger network effects. So it's hard to overcome those network effects and the amount of infrastructure that's in place, but it's happening.
And do you think that kind of works like, as a copyright and as a patent, the word network effects? Because imagine, I can create a product now, you can copy it, but if I have a cryptocurrency associated to my product that gives value to users, that my product is different now because it has a network effect with value, proper value, with the token. And I think that kind of works like, as a copyright, right? Because you can copy my project, but you can copy the community. You cannot copy the network effects. And I think that's it's very, very important, right?
And if you look at it, there's like maybe a dozen different flavors of Bitcoin.
Exactly.
And they're all almost identical technically. And the biggest difference is the network effect across them. And so like BTC has the biggest network effect still and has the biggest market cap because of it. BCH clearly has the second biggest network effect of all the flavors of Bitcoin and has the second biggest market cap. And then, right on down the list. So the network effect is incredibly important, but network effects, can and are overcome. I just look at MySpace or Friendster, right? For anybody that remembers those were the top social networking websites in the entire world. Today, nobody uses them at all anymore, and they lost their first mover advantage in the network effect. So I don't think that these proponents of BTC should be so confident in their network effect.
Completely agree, because things change and network effects change a lot, definitely.
And let's talk about why it changed, right? For anybody that was using either Friendster or MySpace, the reason everybody stopped is because those networks became slow and unreliable.
That is true.
And at the end of 2017, BTC's network became slow and unreliable. And if it had continued to be slow and unreliable for an even longer period of time, more and more people would have migrated. But and I think there's a good chance we're going to see the BTC network become slow and unreliable again because they still have intentionally limited the transactional throughput capacity. If it becomes slow and unreliable again, we're going to see a mass exodus of people from BTC to other coins again, just like we saw a mass exodus of users from MySpace to Facebook, or from Friendster to MySpace before that.
Between bigger blocks and smaller blocks, I know your view, but can you talk about that just like for a second? How do you think that bigger blocks could impact? Do you think that they could have like a bad impact like in the far away future, or you think it's like it's overrated and people shouldn't really care about that?
I think if the blocks on BTC had been allowed to increase to keep up with market demand, I think BTC would still have 90+% market share of cryptocurrencies today instead of the around 50% that it has today.
Okay. That's a very good point of view, honestly. Yeah, it's a very good point of view. Yeah, because people wouldn't probably move like away. Man, you're right.
I wouldn't have left. I'd still be busy promoting BTC all day, every day. And the millions of other people that left BTC for altcoins wouldn't have left either. And even Ethereum would not have been created if the Bitcoin core developers had allowed Bitcoin to be scalable on chain for people to use it for lots of different things. And instead, they intentionally restricted the amount of block space that people could use. So Vitalik struck off on his own to make Ethereum. So the vast majority of these altcoins wouldn't have had any attraction at all if Bitcoin's block size had been allowed to increase to keep up with the market demand.
Yeah, I mean, I see advantages and disadvantages, like, in both approaches. I mean, yeah, honestly, it could have been different, and I think that you're right on that front completely. If they didn't let, the blockchains increase, more people would have stayed. I'm not sure if that would be a good thing. That would have been a good thing, like, in the future. I have no idea, but it's good that we have, now two completely different approaches, because, in 10 years we'll see which one will work. And I think, again, that's what we're here for, right? To have, different currencies and different implementations, basically. Hey, Roger, thank you so much for the call. I know it stretched a little bit. Thank you, man. Honestly, Thank you for your time. I hope we can meet in the future, speak in the future. You're in Tokyo, right?
I hope so too. I'm in Tokyo about half of each year, yeah. So maybe we can meet in person at some point. You're in Spain, or where are you, Pedro?
Right now I'm in UK. I'm in Leeds. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm
Leeds.
Portuguese.
I've been there.
Portuguese.
Yeah. Oh, Portuguese. Okay. Well, thank you so much for your time today, Pedro.
No, thank you so much, Roger, again. And good luck with all your projects, with all your investments. And I hope I can speak to you in the future, man. You're super awesome to talk to, man. Honestly.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Pedro. See you next time.
Bye-bye, man. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Take care.